Okay, well, promise kept in this case. So then let's start with the lecture. So Mary and I talked about it and we decided to have an introduction to the current situation in Germany, the situation that Angela Merkel is facing, and the role of the media when it comes to dealing with the far right. Before I start, I would like to ask you if any one of you knows that man. Can you just give me a hand up? Wow, one. Help me out.
He's the leader of the SPD, the Social Democrats in Germany, Martin Schulz.
Exactly. Well done. So he is the poor sod of the hour at the moment. So he's the one who lost against Angela Merkel in the 2017 election. You will never hear of him again. This is something that is pretty clear at the moment. The Socialist Party has lost enormously, a big deal. I'll show you in a second. And just the fact that he'll vanish from public attention while Angela Merkel still, dominates the news is already a sign of her, power when it comes to the political system in Germany. So the German elections, we're talking about the ones in 2017. So as you already said, between, I think it was September, end of September 2017. And why should you care? This question was asked by CNN as well, and the answer they found is the following. They say, if you're in Europe, well, this applies to you. They write, Germany is the big man on campus. It has the biggest and strongest economy in the European Union. It's widely seen, along with France, as a driver of EU policy and a powerful player in the Brexit negotiations. Speaking of which, both Merkel and Scholz, who's also a former EU president, seemed inclined to take more of a hard line with the UK over its impending exit from the UK. So obviously it's not only about Germany, but it's also about international relations in the EU and who is leading the way into the future. But there's also a more global perspective to it. You see, CNN writes that populist passions rise everywhere. They burned bright last year in the Brexit vote and the US presidential election, but have dimmed in 2017 with the loss of far-right candidates in France and the Netherlands. And they mention the big problem in Germany at the moment already. They say, although the far-right AfD, that is the alternative for Germany, is not a strong party particularly at the moment, it nevertheless managed to get into parliament for the first time. So the problem is that the far right obviously gains in strength, it gains in importance, and we see basically the same mechanisms that we've already seen in America, France, the Netherlands, Italy for that matter. Don't know about Ireland, but surely Britain as well, namely the rise of the new far-right movements, in our case, the AfD. So, this is how Europe will look like once Britain has left the EU. So we'll have Ireland left, France, Germany, Spain, and what is left of the founding nations, so to say, is not particularly impressive. So with the UK gone, there's a major partner, simply gone for all kinds of negotiations. So Germany, as many commentators have said already, will be forced into a leading role. So yet another point, linking back to what I already said, the European Union will change if the British actually decide to leave it. And then the power mechanisms will change as a consequence, with Germany at the centre. So Brexit and the EU influence the importance of the election. Of course, Germany's economic power at the moment is an argument for being interested in the election. Of course, its powerful allies, the NATO, the UNO, etc., and the military power, although that is not such a strong argument at the moment. So I asked myself in preparation for this class how I'd explain Germany's role in the world to you. And I actually did a bit of Googling and had a look at how the English-speaking world sees Germany, because frankly, I have the impression that Germany doesn't want to be a leader. So the Germans are very reluctant when it comes to taking that leading role, which might seem paradoxical to you, because there is this economic power and this economic dominance. But there's still this reluctance to accept political leadership in a globalized world, which I think has partly to do with Germany's past in the 20th century. We still haven't got rid of, shame is too strong a word, but what happened in the 20th century is still very present in Germany. It's very much debated and kept alive with the help of, memorials of people remembering the horrors of the 20th century. So Germany is not really ready to take the role as world leader. So what I did do, I went to a magazine or webpage, as you like, called In Homeland Security. And maybe you've never heard of it, I haven't certainly, but it's a newspaper published by the American Military University, which I found very interesting. So what they write is quite different from the German self-understanding. They say that today Germany is the de facto leader of the European Union. Its economy is dependent on the EU continuing to function as it has since the late 1990s. This is why Merkel refers to the future of Germany and Europe synonymously. Germany is so plugged into the success of the EU that it has bankrolled several bailouts for other countries. When some of these troubled European countries need cash or austerity relief, they go to Berlin instead of Brussels. So this is an American perspective we get here, who locate the center of power in Berlin, which, as you know, is the capital of Germany, rather than Brussels, which would be the place of the European Union. Yet another American voice, this time from the New York Times, an article after the British have decided to leave the European Union, and they say Brexit will cement Germany's role as the continent's leader, a role that neither Germany nor anybody else is entirely comfortable with. So they have a more balanced view about what Germany wants to be and what everybody else wants Germany to be. I think you can skip this ad, but I've brought you a character, one of many to follow in the following minutes, which I quite like. It's not from a German newspaper, I forgot which one, but it's definitely a European one, and they ascribe this leading role to Germany, especially when it comes to economic and financial power. This is actually how the rest of Europe sees Germany, especially in the context of the finance crisis. So, Merkel media and the rise of the far right. So far, we've only been talking about why all of the following is relevant. And before I can go into detail, I would like to show you a video how German elections work, so that you can understand what the problem is the current government is facing at the moment.
Germany's voting system is complicated. So complicated that some Germans don't even understand it.
Yeah, that's true, by the way.
Argue that complexity actually makes Germany's elections some of the fairest in the world. Like the US government, the German federal government is made up of three main parts: the judiciary, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. The legislative branch includes two chambers of parliament, the Bundesrat and the Bundestag. But Germans only vote directly for members of the Bundestag in federal elections, so that's what we'll focus on today. The Bundestag is the legislative branch of the German government, based here in Berlin. Think of it like the US House of Representatives or the UK House of Commons. Every 4 years, Germans vote to elect members of the Bundestag in parliamentary elections. There's a base number of 598 seats up for election in the Bundestag. Here's where it gets confusing. Germans are asked to cast not one, but two votes. On the left side of the ballot, Germans choose a member of parliament from their own constituency. Think of this like Americans voting for a congressperson in their district. There are 299 districts in Germany, so directly elected representatives make up about half of the Bundestag. So if I'm a voter here in Cologne and I've got my ballot, I get one vote for one candidate here in my district. The second vote on the right side of the ballot is for a political party. This vote determines how the remaining 299 seats will be divided up among Germany's various political parties. So back in Cologne, I also get a second vote. This one goes towards one of Germany's political parties, like the Social Democratic Party or the Christian Democratic Union. Political parties in Germany's 16 states put together lists of candidates. The results from the second vote determine how many of these candidates will get off the list and get a seat in parliament. A party has to receive at least 5% of the second votes in a state to qualify for a seat. Cologne is in Germany's most populous state, called North Rhine-Westphalia. About 18 million Germans live here. Because of that, they get to fill the largest share of seats remaining in the Bundestag. Are you with me? Because here's where it gets even more complicated. The number of seats in the Bundestag often actually exceeds 598. Sometimes Germans split their ballots, meaning they vote for a candidate from one party in their first vote and for a different political party in their second vote. This can throw off the balance of seats in parliament, so that one party is more strongly represented than they should be, based on the results of the proportionate second votes. To make up for this, Germans created something called overhang and balance seats. Basically, these are extra seats in the Bundestag to make sure every candidate who is directly elected gets a seat, while at the same time making sure political parties are still proportionally represented based on the number of votes they got. So right after the 2013 elections, there were actually 631 seats in the Bundestag, including 33 overhang and balance seats. One of the first tasks of the newly elected Bundestag is to vote for the most powerful person in Germany, the federal chancellor. But that's easier said than done. To form a government, the chancellor needs to receive an absolute majority in parliament. That means getting more than half the votes of the members of the Bundestag. But Germany has a bunch of political parties, so receiving more than half the seats in parliament is uncommon. That's where a coalition comes in, where the biggest party teams up with other smaller parties to get the votes they need. So after the 2013 elections, the CDU, Angela Merkel's party, and the CSU formed a coalition government with the Social Democrats. Once a coalition is formed, members of parliament vote to elect the chancellor. It's the chancellor who chooses members of his or her cabinet, which includes federal ministers similar to secretaries in the U.S. presidential cabinet. Chancellors serve 4-year terms and don't have term limits. Helmut Kohl is the longest-serving chancellor to date. He was in office for 16 years. Okay, I know that was a lot, so why even bother with all of this complexity? To understand why, well, we have to look to the history books. Many Germans saw the failure of the Weimar Republic as the failure of the country's fragmented parliamentary system. After World War II, the Federal Republic of Germany transferred power from the president toward the Bundestag and encouraged political majorities to pass legislation. Today, the role of the German president is mostly ceremonial, and it's harder for extremist parties to get in power with that 5% vote threshold. The German election structure has resulted in a stable government for more than 60 years. But stable definitely doesn't mean simple.
And these 60 years are
Hey,
definitely
I'm Elizabeth. Thanks for watching.
up.
You can check out.
So it has never taken any government longer to form a coalition than it has. And just to show you how the voting system works, so this is like what you get actually, and then you can have a look. Okay, this side is with is with candidates, and this is with party members. So if you want, you can have a look at it. I don't know about Ireland. Do you all look the same?
No, we're a bit different. We have what's called proportional representation.
Ah, I see.
It isn't as complex as that, but they just vote for candidates.
Ah, okay,
And
so not party.
Beside the candidates, their parties.
Automatically then.
And but it's not first past the post. They can be 6 and 7 counts. Somebody mightn't get a lot of seats or votes in the first count, but they might get in the 10th count if they get seats from they get votes from other candidates.
I see.
I won't bore you with the details. But that's basically how it works.
We also have independents.
We have a
They're
lot of
not party affiliated.
Yeah,
I see. Well, then,
but it's not as complicated as that.
you know, this is one of the lessons history has taught the Germans, actually. So, as it said in the video, this is the idea behind it. You make it very complicated to make sure that it's absolutely fair. And some of the parties tried to trick people, because the important vote is actually the second one, the one for the party. But the bare fact that it's called second vote makes it sound unimportant. So in the past, parties have said, oh, just give us a second vote, you know. If you don't care, you can do with your first whatever you like. And this has actually worked because Germans themselves tend not to understand their voting system. So it's a highly complex system. So let me actually show you what came out of the 2017 election. And I like that picture because it plays at this famous football quote, you know. I don't know who said it, but it's all about football is 2 teams with 11 men running around a field with a ball, and in the end Germany wins. And this is similar. The German elections is where 2 different parties with the same politics clash, and at the end Merkel always wins. So this is actually how it feels at the moment in Germany. So Angela Merkel has been Chancellor for 12 years now, so she's a long term. She's getting close to those 16 years mentioned in the video. And there's just the impression that you can't do anything against her. She's so at the centre of attention, and
is it because there's no one stronger to take her on?
no, definitely. So neither in her own party nor in the other parties. So there's a dominance to it that can't be broken, and obviously it was like this in 2017. So what are the results? So the black one is Angela Merkel's party, which turned out to be the strongest, of course, then the Democratic Socialists, and the other parties following. noteworthy is that our parliament consists of 7 parties in total at the moment. Okay, so remember, you have to have a majority vote, so you need more than 50% to actually form a government. If you only have 4 parties in your parliament, that's far easier to do than with 7 parties. Especially since the last election brought us a 7th party, the Alternative for Germany, about which I will talk in a couple of minutes. So these are the results we had to work with, and these are the options that we had. So it was actually called the Kenya option, so after the African country, because of the colours. So you have the CDU, the SPD, and the Greens, so black, red, and white. You can also say Afghanistan, but we decided for Kenya. And people were like, nah, maybe not. Then we had the option, the Broco, so the Great Coalition again, that what we already, like what we had after the last election, which would be Angela Merkel's party and the Democratic Socialists, but people were definitely fed up with it. They didn't want it back, so no. What they did favour actually is the Jamaica option. So the CDU with the Liberals and the Greens. And people were like, that's new. So we've never tried that one before, especially those 2 parties usually don't understand each other or don't like each other very much. The ones with the FDP with an economic focus, and the Greens obviously all about sustainability, environment, that kind of stuff. But people were like, yeah, let's give it a try. Why not? So we had the election, and then roughly 1 month later, the Jamaica negotiations started. And as I said, there was a generally positive mode. So you got mood. Sorry, you got the impression, okay, something's about to change finally. And people were actually longing for a new start, something different. The problem was with the Liberals, who, after they had their discussions, terminated the negotiations about a possible Jamaica coalition, which actually generated a lot of criticism. As I said, the entire country was in favour of that option. Now the Liberals had to explain themselves why they decided to drop out. So this resulted in a kind of hangover mood in Germany, because, disappointment all over the place. And they found the one they wanted to blame in the Liberals' leader, Christian Lindner, who was made responsible. Fair enough, actually, because he terminated it. Yeah.
Why did they drop it?
Because they just said, okay, we can't come together, you want different things, and we cannot possibly find a compromise. That's the official version. Of course, there were quarrels, so the Greens claimed, okay, we nearly reached a consensus. Liberals saying it wasn't possible, so people were actually saying a lot.
Hasn't their popularity dropped now to such a level that the far left are even ahead of them? I think they read a news report or a poll yesterday on that regard, and say the far left have moved into secondary party kind of, you know what I mean, opposition party to the government at this point. Is that at the moment, is that the level he's dropped off on that party?
This is their only option actually to go in the opposition, that they can't do anything at the moment. Which is quite a paradox, because they said, okay, now we have to take responsibility, people voted for us, and then the official statement was, okay, and I tried to translate it literally, they said, better not to rule than rule wrongly. So, which is either you want responsibility or you do not want responsibility, and I decided not to.
Is there one issue that kind of has caused them to
not be able to get together as an immigration news or something like that? Like, we have the same thing happening in Northern Ireland at the moment, and it's all around the Irish language of all things.
Actually, no, it's not about language. I think it was about energy and coal. So the Greens obviously favouring renewable energies, and the Liberals siding with the economy, saying, okay, who's going to pay for that? And they wanted to have their coal far longer than the Greens would accept it. So I think this was the most important point.
Okay, so are we still at a stalemate? So we are.
Like, at the moment.
This is where we're at, is it?
No, it continues. So there was a short time when people thought, okay, maybe Kenya is an alternative, but that was quickly dismissed. And now we're back to remember this is the option that absolutely no one wanted. Okay, so a Broco, so große Koalition, the great coalition between Social Democrats and the Christian Union. And this was highly debated in December. You see the hashtag #NoGroco. So this is a campaign against forming that government. And of course, the media was full of criticism because they've been looking forward to something new. As I said, the hashtag #NoGroco. But inevitably, this is what we get, obviously. So in the middle of January, the coalition negotiations were finished. Beginning of February, they announced that the Broco will be coming. But at the moment, it seems like everybody is disappointed. So the general public is disappointed. The SPD is disappointed because they say, okay, we don't want to do this because Merkel has actually been crushing them. She's been able to take all the SPD's victories and make them her own, seemingly, so to say. And the CDU and the CSU are not very pleased either, so this is Merkel's party, because in order to stay in power, Merkel had to make compromises. So she gave away the Department of Finance and the Department of Foreign Affairs to the SPD. Remember, a party that has barely 20% of the votes. Thank you. Yeah. So, general dissatisfaction. So the situation now, I checked it 2 hours ago. There's a referendum for the members of the Social Democrats. So they are asked, okay, do you want to do that? And there's a big discussion in the media, and it's quite bordering on the ludicrous, actually, at the moment. Because the biggest tabloid paper in Germany, the Bild-Zeitung, managed to register a dog for said referendum.
Register a dog?
Yes. I don't know. They think it was funny.
Is this to show how bizarre the whole
Exactly.
thing is? All right.
The discussion is about, okay, why do we need to vote in the first place if then some thousand members of the SPD just get to decide about our future government? So why do we need a second vote? And obviously, is it a trustworthy referendum? And they, register the dog, so you can see their position on that. So our future government is faced with hard criticism at the moment by the media, by the party members, by the general public, and there's a toxic climate from the start which, doesn't let you hope for the best. So, and this is what Reuters said today. It reported that the support for Germany's Social Democrats hit a record low. A poll showed, and the party's leader in waiting said she had no plan B. Should members reject the coalition deal with Angela Merkel's Conservatives? And these are just some media reactions, basically a summary of what I just told you. Germany at odds over coalition plan, and the least bad option, Germany limps towards a new government, so this is not very positive. The problem, as I already said, is that we have now 7 parties in our parliament, and one of them can be considered to be part of the far right wing. So the Alternative for Germany has actually managed to get into the parliament, and it's on 3rd place when it comes to seats, which is surprising. Nobody would have guessed it before, but it's also very problematic. What is the Alternative for Germany? I would like to show you a quick video what they stand for.
The right wing has been making spectacular gains here in Germany in the last couple of years. I come to meet members of the AfD, Alternative for Deutschland. They're leading this right-wing charge, and some people say they're a bunch of racists. I want to try and find out.
Wo wir uns denken, dass die Mehrheit der Menschen hier nicht akzeptiert. Das ist eben der Ruf des Muslinen, das sind Minarette und das ist eben auch die Burka.
The AfD, or Alternative for Germany, has only existed for 3 years, but in that time it's attracted lots of support for its anti-migrant, anti-establishment, Eurosceptic views. It plays on real fears about refugees and staunchly defends the notion of Germany as a Christian state. Rostock has become one of its strongholds.
The problem is that's not our culture, and it's sehr viel schwieriger, Menschen aus dem Islam, aus einer anderen Kultur zu integrieren, als zum Beispiel Menschen aus Europa oder aus anderen Ländern, die unsere Werte vertreten. Das betrifft natürlich nicht alle, aber es ist einfach eine andere Kultur, die hier fremd ist und die vor allen Dingen auch fremd bleiben will. Nicht jeder will sich wirklich integrieren. Das ist das Problem.
So if an area with a significant Muslim population said it was disturbed by the sound of the bells and coming from church on a Sunday, would they have a point?
Diese Kirchenglocken, diese Religionen, die haben wir über viele Jahrhunderte. Das muss man wissen, wenn man hier einwandert, dass man diese Religion entsprechend akzeptieren muss. Das weiß ich vorher. Denn ich baue mir auch nicht ein Haus an die Autobahn und sage dann, mach die Autobahn weg.
Grandmother is the local candidate. She's hoping for a big win, and she's been having a busy morning.
Ja, ich werde nicht unhöflich. Aber ich habe die ganze Nacht geschlafen. Weil mich diese Doofheit der anderen Politiker derartig aufregt, dass es nicht zum Ausdruck. Also wir müssen wir nur noch kämpfen und wir schaffen das. Wir schaffen das. Das ist die Gut. Vielen Dank. Ja, schön. Tschüss. Ja, war der Erfolg.
From BBC News in England. I'd like to talk to you about your conversation.
Niemandem auf der Straße begegnen, dem ich nicht in die Augen sehen kann. Ich möchte gerne sehen, wer vor mir steht. Ich weiß ja nicht, ist das jetzt ein Mann oder ist das jetzt eine Frau? Hat der vielleicht noch einen Gürtel um? Ja, kann ich nicht erkennen. Ja, und ich renne in mein Unglück rein.
Some people say that this party and the people who support it, like you, are racist. What do you feel when you hear people saying that?
Also, da bin ich total entsetzt. Das sind Bürger, die AfD, sag ich, die vertreten meine Meinung. Keine andere Partei tut das, aber die AfD tut das.
Very interesting, isn't it? You follow what this is all about. The same thing is going on in Italy, actually. There's an election in Italy next week, isn't it? And the far right in Italy, who want to stop all migrants coming into Europe, it looks like they could form a government. They're led by a guy called Beppe Grillo. Has anyone heard of him? Former comedian. And but this is happening all over Europe now. It's a real swing against all the immigrants, because Italy has a big problem. It's the first stop when people come from Africa. So Italy has had to take more than any other European country, because they're kept in Italy. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say that these are words that you might have heard in, Italy, France, UK, Ireland maybe as well. I'm not up to date so much here. But the alternative for Germany really, as paradoxically as that might sound, profits from the refugees, because this is where they can make their point. So I just wanted to give you a quick walk through their program, and I picked what I found to be the most interesting points. So in their manifesto for Germany, they write that they would like to protect German borders, and wherever necessary, protective fences or similar barriers are to be set up. So it's against this European thought of, free movement, traveling around as you like, and it sounds a bit like Donald Trump, actually. So you see the little similarities. They're all for the labour market and to free it from unnecessary restrictions, whatever that means. It sounds neoliberal, but what are numerous legal questions are subject to complex and regionally disparate jurisdiction. I mean, what is that supposed to mean? What kind of questions? So very vague program. They want to compensate parents for raising and educating their children, and thereby trying to encourage citizens to have more children. That is, German citizens, of course. So not the migrant families and not Muslim families, certainly. What else is there? Yeah. Linking back to their point, larger families instead of mass migration. They say that mass immigration has a high potential for conflict and is not a viable economic solution. The only mid-term solution is to attain a higher birth rate by the native population by stimulating family policies. However they are going to do that, it's left unsaid again. Salute unborn and newborn children. So opposes all attempts to downplay abortions, government support for abortions, or declare abortions as a human right. And they say that Islam does not belong to Germany. To sum it up, they want to strengthen motivation and discipline, and I didn't make that up, that is actually in the manifesto. And they say, what is it? Motivation and discipline are prerequisites for successful knowledge transfer. Again, very vague. So how does discipline look like? Is it a return to methods of the 20th century, or how do they think this is going to work? So all in all, it's anti-feminist, anti-liberal, slightly racist, actually. But nevertheless, this program has been very, very successful. So successful that the alternative for Germany is actually threatening, no, it's not threatening, but it's causing troubles but in the process of forming a government. So you can see that here, I like that quite much. So Angela Merkel's triumph ruined by the far right. Or this one is also very pretty. The princess, and there's the AfD bomb that sooner or later is going to explode. So you see, the AfD is one of the parties who actually managed to win votes. So it's always the blue one. Both the SPD and the CSU lost considerably. But the thing is, people don't vote for the alternative for Germany because they're convinced of their program. So this is what this says here. So it says it asks for conviction, but they say it's because of frustration. So thankfully, you have to say, thank God, 61% of the voters said, okay, we're frustrated with the way politics go, so we're voting for them. So, and this is actually the latest survey. So, I was telling you about all the frustration with forming a coalition, and this is the result actually. Remember, the AfD was the third party, now it's the second. So the SPD has moved to the third place, and New Far Right is in second place with 16% of people who vote for them if there was another election.
So they're the head of the socialists.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
The socialists, to be honest, have been a disgrace.
That's all since September, is it? That's a bit frightening, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
But it's, I blame the socialists actually. They're disgraced at the moment. They've really disgraced themselves with people trying to get a position in government, people clinging to their jobs instead of putting the needs of the country and the population first. So this is a direct result of people's frustration. And I cannot make that clear enough. I'm deeply convinced that the rise of the AfD has nothing to do with a neo-Nazi movement in Germany. I think that 80% is due to frustration and due to a wish to change something, the need to feel heard in some kind of way. So I don't say it's because Germany is going back to Nazi times again. Really a lot has to do with frustration and the impression that you can't do anything against the system. I haven't touched one aspect of the discussion so far, and this is media's contribution to the success the Alternative for Germany has had, and this is actually what the headline says. So, how helpful was the media? How much, to put it differently, did the Alternative profit from the way media has treated them? And I think I can give an answer to that. So the first aspect is far-right parties do have a strong online presence. So they're very prominent on Facebook. They have opposition websites claiming to distribute the real information. You know, it's all made up and the government wants to keep us uninformed. The Washington Post even saying the AfD won the Facebook battle, and when you have a look at that chart, you can see the blue one is again the AfD, and this is the average likes per post. So the far right obviously manages to harvest the potential of social media, and they manage to get their message out there. So a disturbing first result is that right-wing parties are obviously outside of media's reach. So the media cannot control them. They cannot spot fake news because they just don't, they're working out of their reach anyway. But the second point is definitely the active war between the media and right-wing parties. So the media actually was not very, how should I put it? They were very quick in attaching labels to AfD voters. So the average AfD voter is uneducated, anti-globalization, unemployed, whatever you like. So you have this idea of a redneck, basically. So people who vote for them must be idiots, can't be. So that gave them an advantage, so to say. So people turned against the media and said, okay, this is oversimplification, you can't do that. And as I said, most of them are actually very intelligent people as well. I don't want to apologize, I don't want to excuse their behavior, but most of them say, okay, it's just because we're frustrated. And then again, the result, the fake news, Lügenpresse as in German, so similar to Trump's America. And this is my second result, so the oversimplification or underestimation. And the third point is the one I think is the crucial one. Media is giving parties like the AfD very much attention. So they're actively promoting them, if you allow me the phrase. They report on them often, and I don't need to translate it, but it's just politicians complaining that whatever the AfD does and says, they're going to report about that. And the AfD knows that and uses it to its benefit. So there's the question if the media actively promotes that. So what is the alternative? More reporting about political party, the more a populistic party profits from it. So you can't really do anything about it. You have to report somehow, but you also have to keep in mind, okay, the more often you mention them, the more often people will hear their name and think about them. So this results in a constant stream of news. They remain in the center of attention. They actually benefit from the idea that the media treats them unfairly, so they can slip into that role of a victim. And, well, this is the alternative that I've found online, proposed by different professors dealing or working, researching media, and they say, okay, not reporting is not an option. People are going to vote for parties like the AfD, get their information anyway. Biased reporting is not an option. You have to be neutral. You have to take them seriously. And normal reporting, well, this is actually what is meant by look at what they say and try to, frame it accurately.
Yeah.
Obviously, no one has found a solution how to deal with them. But I think it is very important to think about the way media has treated these parties and has given them attention, and ask the question whether media has had a role in these election results.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, you can ask all the same questions about Trump in America.
Yes.
And the same thing is going on in Italy, because, do you ignore them? Do you try to report them accurately? And the big game changer here, I think, is social media, because they're experts at using social media. And you've all probably read, particularly about America, that they were so sophisticated in the way they targeted, particularly the Trump campaign, various socioeconomic groups that they were trying to target, and they even sent out specified Facebook messages to people, say like people who unemployed farm labourers, they even had a special message for them. And the whole kind of red belt, the redneck belt in America, where the Rust Belt, where there were all these people out of work because factories had closed. They were so refined in the way they sent messages out. And the whole thing about it is there's no control over it. And people can argue that you were right to put your message out there. But nobody has figured out how to filter fake news.
And I think our situation in the United States parallels yours in many ways. And I think in some ways you may have misread your constituents or misread your audience, because if you went by what the news was saying, Hillary Clinton should have won by a landslide.
Yeah.
So did the media, in a way, report what they wanted instead of what was heard, or what do you think causes that? Because it seems like you have that in your country as well.
Yeah, I think so. Just a lot of people just couldn't imagine the results I showed you. They say, okay, this is never going to happen. And people, when asked, in official surveys or polls, they tend to say what they think is socially acceptable. So they tend to name the Greens or, the Democratic Socialists. Okay. But then when they're when it actually comes down to voting, they vote for parties like the AfD. So, yeah. Thanks for your attention.